Hello everybody, welcome back to the Advanced Vape channel. Today we're going to be looking at the AROMAMIZER Plus 30mm RDTA from STEAM CRAVE. So this is sort of an extrapolation of the AROMAMIZER Supreme kind of design up to a 30mm size, and to me this is a direct intentional competition with this, the ModFather RTA. This is a 30mm RTA that came out a while ago. I've already done a review on it, and this has sort of held the top spot for a while now on this 30mm size RTA with AROMAMIZER style wicking. So this is STEAM CRAVE's answer to that, in my opinion. They were kind of the first to do this RDTA wicking, that's what they call it. Different RDTA than the Genesis style that I was talking about in the last video. So this is where juice wells up from little ports, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. But they've had this design around for a while with the original AROMAMIZER, and a few steps in between then. The most recent was the Supreme, and now this, which is 30mm. And it really feels like they're trying to compete directly with the ModFather, and they're going to be able to, because the ModFather is still very hard to get a hold of. And like the ModFather, this comes in different size options. So this one is the 10 milliliter size. It also comes with the shorty kit available separately, or you can get it as a bundle that's 5 milliliters, as well as an extension kit, which is 20, I think, which makes it kind of huge. And it's the same options that were available for the ModFather. This is the shorty kit on there right now. So I just have the 10 milliliter version, and so that's what I'm going to be testing today. To me, the design is very similar to the Supreme, except for when you get inside. And I'll go on and take it apart a little bit. This tank comes apart in a lot of different ways. So there's a lot of tanks out there that are really simple, only 2 or 3 parts, and this is not one of those. So I'll just start by taking it apart into its different pieces and talk about it just a little bit. It unscrews from the bottom, like you would be used to with the AROMAMIZER, Boreas, ModFather, that kind of stuff. And it has a removable build deck. And before I talk about the build deck, this bottom section serves as both the juice flow control and to hold the build deck in place. So the juice flow control kind of free rotates here and is stopped either fully open or fully closed. So this would be fully open, and it's kind of has it so you can tell what position it's in by this dot connecting to either unlocked or locked. So if we move it all the way back to the locked position, you can see it's closed. These ports right here where juice comes down and wells up to the deck, wells into these ports here, and that's where your wick is going to be, flowing down from these channels. So a little bit different than the earlier designs, but not by a whole lot. The big difference on this is going to be the build deck. It's a postless design build deck, which is really different from the kind of typical velocity style on this sort of device. Here's a build deck from a Boreas to show the difference here. This is kind of how build decks have been on this style. It's a velocity style with holes in the bottom. And you can see this is quite a bit bigger, as well as postless. They say that you can fit up to 6mm diameter coils in there. I haven't tried that. That's a lot of wick, and I don't even have a 6mm jig. This is 3mm, and I like that. I pretty much always use 3mm, so that's what I'm going to be going with today. I'm going to go on and put this on the mod, ready to finish building it and firing it, and kind of set this aside while we talk about the rest of it. The airflow control is kind of a tapered down line here, where this is at its widest point, and you can taper it down to kind of control how open that is. And there's a little bit of a mesh in there protecting the coils and just sort of changing the way the air goes in. This airflow control is extremely loose. I can spin it extremely easily, and if you have this in your pocket or something, it'll just spin on its own. There's basically no resistance there. You could probably fix that with a little bit of floss behind these O-rings, but it would have been nice if it didn't spin quite so easily. And the rest of the tank comes apart. This chimney unscrews from both the bottom and the top if you want to replace the chimney and the glass with one of the shorty kit or the extender kit. And the refill is top fill unscrews here. There's the fill ports. The drip tip just stays in place there. One thing you want to be careful of with this, you don't want to screw this down too tight because it can be very hard to get off of there, and sometimes it'll take this whole top section with it and not just the knurled part. It'll take the entire top section unscrewing from the chimney. So I don't ever tighten it as tight as I can, just till I can tell that it's sealed, and then I stop. Okay, so I'm going to go on and move the camera and get the installation of the second coil done. I went on and put one on here, but I wanted to demonstrate how the installation works. Okay, so as you can see, like most postless designs, it has kind of side tension screws there. And you have to have the legs cut to the length that you want the coil to be off the deck. So you kind of have to pre-cut both legs. And just put it in there. And tighten the screws down. These screws can be a little bit hard to get tension on. It's like the cup that the Allen key goes in is really shallow or something, so it slips out easily. I wish the screws were just a little bit sturdier. I haven't had any problems with it stripping yet, but it's hard to feel like I've got a good grip on it, and that's either using this or the Allen key that it came with. I could see this being able to support really wide diameter because of the amount of room there, but I think you'd run into problems with there being too much wick if you went too high with it. Okay, this is a staple staggered fused clapton. I know that's kind of a mouthful, but it's ribbon that's been staggered. It's a kind of a staggered frame staple. And that's the build that I decided to go with today. All stainless steel, and we'll zoom in a little bit and get through the dry fire part. Okay, I think we're good to zoom out and move on to wicking. Okay, so the process of wicking this is going to be obviously different than wicking something like the Modfather, but the kind of principle is the same. You don't want to overstuff it, but you've got a little bit of room to maneuver on this versus the Modfather because there's a juice flow control, which there is not on the Modfather. So you could wick it a little bit lighter than you would the Modfather. You're kind of stuck with the Modfather on wicking it enough so that it won't leak. And of course this can leak as well very easily but you've got just a little bit of flexibility there because of that juice flow control. Basically, you want these holes to be completely blocked, but you don't want it to be packed in there. So I'm going to be using cotton bacon on this. Okay, so cutting this to the right length requires just a little bit of finesse to get it right on the first one. So I usually cut it right about where those O-rings are because it's going to be packed in there just a little bit. And I'm going to brush it out just a little bit, not a whole lot. Okay, so I've got them totally put in there and not stuffed in there, but the hole's completely blocked. And I just kind of fluffed it up just a little bit so that there's not some big gap in there that I didn't see when I squeezed it and pushed it in. And now we're ready to saturate. And from this point, I'm going to take it off and saturate the bottom and check to make sure there's not a big gap in there. Okay, so that looks pretty blocked. You can kind of hold it up to the light to see if there's a big gap in there. Ideally, you see a little bit of light coming through, but not bright in any spots. So you can kind of see there's some light shining through there, but not. It's going through cotton is what I'm getting at. And I usually just drop a drop onto each area there. Sorry, that was off camera. Okay, so as you can see, it has two notches there to make sure that it's lined up with the airflows. Just get it pushed in all the way there. As you can see, the notch at the base is with this notch there, so it's in there all the way, and the coils are perfectly lined up with the airflow. And now we're ready to take our base and screw it on. Oh, need the airflow ring on there. And let's get it on the mod. You absolutely want to make sure that the juice flow, the dot, is lined up with the locked, that it's completely closed before you refill. And I'll say, even though it's completely closed, that juice flow is not a complete seal. So there's been times when I've refilled it and it's been closed, yet the wicks are super saturated when I go to use it, which tells me that there's still juice getting through there, even though it's completely closed. But if you have it all the way open and try and refill it, it's going to leak like crazy. So you want to make sure that it's closed, but just be aware that there is still some juice getting through there. That's not a complete seal when it's all the way closed. And like any tank, when you're talking about this much capacity, I rarely fill it up all the way in my first use because I want to make sure that it's not going to leak. And I'm actually going to try it out at first with the juice flow closed, because those wicks are going to be really saturated. I don't want it to over fill in there. And I'm going to go up to about 105, 110. Yeah, maybe 107. Okay. And I have this airflow all the way open. Okay, so now that I've burned off some of that juice, I'm going to open that up just a little bit. Right about there, and we'll see how that is. This is extremely effective at wicking, so throughout my using this, I've basically never had it all the way open, except for one time where I really just packed the wicks in there to kind of experiment with it. But if you just wicked it how I just did, somewhere around here is very saturated. Okay, so I can open it just a little bit more. I wanted to make sure that it's not going to flood on me. With the airflow all the way open like this, it feels like considerably less air than the Modfather with its airflow all the way open. So it's a smaller air port, as you can see. The Modfather is very airy when it's all the way open. And this is considerably less, but it has that postless deck smooth airflow thing. And I think, though, that kind of honeycomb mesh in there kind of contributes to that. So a very, very smooth airflow and just a little bit less air than the Modfather. But, I mean, this is a really big build that I have in here, and it's plenty of air to support that. So it's definitely not a restricted airflow, something like the Petrie. It's more air than that. It's just less than something like the Modfather. And it definitely has that kind of classic AROMAMIZER, Modfather, Boreas style vape to it, that saturated hit that kind of feels like a dripper on its second or third vape. So it stays at kind of that perfect level of saturation. And it's like that with the Boreas or with the other AROMAMIZERs with the Modfather. When they're wicked properly, that's the way that it should be. In terms of flavor, it's exceptionally good. I like it better than any of the other AROMAMIZERs, and it's really right up there with the Modfather in terms of flavor. Just in the short amount of time that I've had this, it's in my kind of daily rotation, along with the Modfather and the 30mm VCST. Those are the three tanks that I use more than any others right now. Even with a little bit less airflow, I feel like it's just the perfect amount for the coils that I have in there and the diameter. That might be different if you really went huge on it. But for what I have in there, some staples that are at 3mm, it's just perfect. The flavor is absolutely top notch. So now that I've said how the flavor is, let's talk about a more direct comparison to the Modfather on other stuff. So The things that I don't like about this tank, I'm not a big fan of this airflow ring being as loose as it is. I wish it was just a little bit tighter. And the fact that it has a lot of parts in there, rotating, and it's got the juice control and the airflow and just a lot of parts in there, they tend to get juicy over time, kind of like the Beast RTA that I reviewed a while back. So just after using it for a while, there's little bits of juice seeping out at the edges along here. And it just kind of always looks like it has a drip of juice here and a little dot there sort of thing. Not really a huge deal, but it just kind of makes the whole thing greasy all the time. And that's sort of common on this kind of thing, but just all of these parts make that a little bit more noticeable in this tank versus the Mod Father. I also would have changed those screws that are in the deck. They're just a little bit hard to really get a grip on and use. I would have gone with a little bit bigger, especially if they're kind of advertising that you can put just crazy big builds in there. And you probably could on the diameter, but not the number of wraps. It's kind of limited in the width of the coil to about where I had it, which was 5 wraps on this huge build. So you may be able to go big on the diameter, but you can't really go big on the width the way that you can on the Velocity style deck. Overall, though, those are minor concerns, and they're just kind of build and usability issues rather than a problem with the tank and the way that it functions. It's all just minor stuff, and this top cap getting stuck, that's another kind of issue if you tighten it too much. The Mod Father, the cap is always extremely easy to get off, but as long as you don't tighten it too much, that's really not a big deal. Just as far as other issues, if you're talking about price and availability and something, that this is going to flat out beat the Mod Father. The Mod Father is still very hard to get a hold of. I still get emails asking where to get a hold of it, and I don't really have a good answer for that. It's just hard to get a hold of, and it's expensive. This is somewhere around $40 or $45 and going to be way more available. So I get the feeling that a lot more people are going to have access to this and use it than something like the Mod Father. But really, that's okay because the flavor on this is very close. I would recommend this tank to anybody that's trying to get a hold of a Mod Father and can't get a hold of one, or you really just want having a juice flow control, because that's a big plus for this one. Allows more flexibility with the wicking and stuff like that to be able to control the juice flow. And I like the combination of the postless deck with this system. I think that was a good choice to go with this tank. Overall, I would highly recommend this tank. It's got a couple little annoyances, but every tank has that. Mod Father has issues as far as not having a juice flow control and being a little bit finicky on the wicking. No tank is perfect, so if you can get past those little tiny issues, I absolutely recommend this tank. The flavor is among the best that you can get in an RTA right now. And of course, the price and availability thing that I mentioned makes it a good contender. I really just don't have anything about this tank that makes me say don't buy this. So if you're looking for a high performance 30mm RTA, you already have a Mod Father and you're looking for something else, or you can't get a hold of one, it's definitely worth looking into. And that'll bring us to the end of this video about the AROMAMIZER Plus RDTA from STEAM CRAVE. If you like this video on our channel, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. And as always, if you have any questions, leave them below in the comments or send me an email. Thanks.